Hello gentle viewers, this is George from Ireland. Here I am in Kennington Park, London. Kennington Park used to be Kennington Common. So a common meant a piece of land that was public and anybody could come here to graze their animals or to gather dead wood as firewood or just to perambulate for exercise, play games of football even before they had formal rules, things like that, leisure gardens. Then from the 17th century onwards, there were enclosure acts, or the 16th century rather, and the Parliament would vote that they could build a fence around it, could be privately owned, and it became part of the Duchy of Cornwall. The Prince of Wales also has the title Duke of Cornwall, as in the eldest son of the monarch, he's Prince of Wales as well as Duke of Cornwall, or he got several other titles. This belonged to him. However, the public used it quite a lot. So Kennington Common, as it was then known, it's most famous for an enormous rally, a monster meeting as they said, on the 10th of April 1848. For about 10 years before that, there had been the Chartists, who were very active, or the National Charter Association, to give it its proper name, and they had several goals. They wanted Parliament to be elected annually, they wanted all men over the age of 21 to have the right to vote, they wanted salaries for members of Parliament, so working class men could afford to be MPs, things like that. They wanted constituencies of roughly equal population, so in a word, democracy. And they've been agitating for years. It was a time of increasing unemployment because of the Industrial Revolution, because things were being mechanized, some people lost their jobs. Likewise, the agricultural revolution meant many agricultural labourers had lost their jobs, moving into towns. There was urban squalor. The Church of England was not catering to this urban working class so much, and this rootless proletariat was often persuaded by this radical Chartist agitation. And so they presented a national charter, a petition, with hundreds of thousands of signatures to Parliament. Parliament had voted to refuse to even consider it. However, many of the signatures had been forged or had ridiculous names such as Big Nose. They'd written Gladstone's name on the petition, and there was no way he would ever sign it. They had written Queen Victoria's name on the petition. There may have been people trying to sabotage the National Charter who'd written these very unlikely names on the petition. Anyway, they had their huge rally here in 1848, and they were going to march to Parliament. But anyway, emergency legislation was brought in, special constables were commissioned and given truncheons. Gladstone was amongst them. People really feared there'd be revolution, but the charter said, we know we must have order and dignity. We're going to use moral force, not physical force. That was that. It was the year of revolutions, 1848. From that march from Paris onwards to several European capitals, there were revolutions. Anyway, there was no revolution in the United Kingdom, perhaps surprisingly. It was a time of the famine in Ireland, and of course the whole of Ireland was part of the United Kingdom back then. So the charter turned out to be a damp squib, and they gradually dissolved and their goals were not achieved, partly because the corn laws had just been abolished, so bread became a bit cheaper. You can't agitate a man on a full stomach, as one famous radical orator said, because the people's physical needs are met. They're not quite so open to persuasion by those who demand radical political change. The railways had a contracyclical effect on the economy because that soaked up some of the mass unemployment. And oddly, when unemployment was highest, people built the railways more because they could pay lower wages. Cunning capitalists, and so on. So that was probably the most famous event that occurred here on Kennington Common, since renamed Kennington Park. And anyway, fences were put up, and the Prince of Wales at the time, he paid for that. So he gave £200 of the £1,000 needed for the railings, and no more political rallies were allowed there, only temperance meetings, and those who wanted to restrict the sale and consumption of alcohol, which was a real political hot potato through the late 19th century until about the First World War. And then wartime restrictions on alcohol sale was sufficient to take the wind out of the sails of the temperance movement, and really that was that. So anyway, it's a lovely park for its own sake. It's got a bit of a garden there. It's got some very ornate fountains. It's got the Prince Consort's Lodge, which was a model house. It's a real house, but meant to be like a perfect one to copy, built for the Great Exhibition in 1851. So we're very close to Oval Tube Station, or indeed Kennington Tube Station, not far south of the Thames. As you can see, a circus is setting up here. It's no longer summer. People are back from their holidays. It's very autumnal already. But the weather is still sufficiently warm, they can have things going on in a tent. So do pay a visit to Kennington Park.